Alright, so now we're going to be fletching the arrow. Normally I use turkey feathers just because turkey feathers are a little more durable than a lot of other feathers out there. But if you've seen the Hunger Games and you've seen the arrows that Katniss uses in the very beginning of the movie, the feathers are really tattered and they almost look like feathers from smaller birds. So today I'm going to be using chicken feathers. These are 3 chicken tail feathers that I got from Hawaii Archer, or John. And so we did a little trade for these a while back. And so we're going to end up with something like this. So you can see the feather doesn't really hold together very well. And that's, you know, if you've seen the movie, this is what her feathers look like. So we're going to be using these to complete our arrow. Now the first thing you want to do is, I like to make sure that my feathers are all going the same side. So you can tell, just because of the way they're oriented, and they're pretty much identical, that they were all from the same part of the tail. Now what you want to do is you take one of your feathers, and I'm just going to be stripping them. So you start from the top, firmly grip, and then just peel it. Peel all the way down. Pick off from where it stopped. Peel down. Okay. So there we go. So now that we've peeled this down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the feather here and right under here. I'm going to do this to the rest of my feathers, and then we're going to go ahead and put them on the arrow. So I'm going to do this to the other feathers. I'm going to trim them, and then we're going to go put them on the arrow. Okay, so I'm going to be applying these feathers by hand. Now this arrow is mainly going to be decorative. Of course, you can shoot it, but first and foremost, it's mainly a decorative arrow. So I'm just going to be super gluing the feathers on. So we've got the feather, like I said. We just strip the one side down. So you're going to cut right about there, so you get a good start to it. And then right where that little poof is, just want to go and snip it right there. So now what you do is you just go ahead and apply a little bit of super glue to the arrow. So you don't need to use a lot, just a little bit. You just want to get a little bit of glue on the feather. Alright. And take your arrow. Now one thing I did, you see I wrapped up here, I did the same thing, and I wrapped for about, I'd say, about 3/8 of an inch. So what this is going to do is keep this from splitting. What you want to do is take your feather, start by looking at your arrow, and then you want to put one perpendicular to your nock. Your first feather will be perpendicular to your nock. Just go ahead and get it on there. Alright. Okay. So here you can see I've got the feather on, and it's perpendicular to the nock here. So the other two feathers we're going to glue on at about 120 degrees away on both sides. Okay, so here's the feathers on there. See how it looks? Now, chicken feathers and basically smaller bird feathers in general will do this if you go against the grain a little bit. They'll kind of bunch up and get all ratty. There's really not much you can do about it. But since that's the effect we're going for, that's pretty much perfect. So here it is. Now what we're going to do is clean up the ends here, and then we're going to wrap it. Okay, you want to take a sharp knife, and you want to take the end of this here, and you want to gently, very gently, sort of cut the feather. You see that? So what we've done is that the feather is less likely to catch. I'm going to do that for the three feathers right here. There we go. Alright, now we're going to be tying this. I'm going to be using some brown hemp. And what I thought was interesting about the prop arrows that were used, that they were actually tied in places. So what we do is we start here. Wrap over the arrow, just a simple overhand knot. And you just want to tighten it. Now this first one, we want to make sure that we get it on the very front of the arrows. This will help keep the fronts from lifting. One thing too, you want to look down your arrow and figure out which side is going to touch the bow. You want to make sure that this knot here does not rest against the bow, or it's going to get braided down. But the way the arrows in the movie were wrapped is that they were actually tied like this. So you tie it once, tie it as tight as you can, and then you want to go and just double up the knot. So just tie it once more. Make sure it's tight. There it is. You just go back. You snip those. You want to leave about 1/4 of an inch on either side. There it is. So there are actually 3 or 4 wraps on this arrow. It depends. Different arrows had slightly different wrappings on them. So I'm going to go finish wrapping this arrow, and then I'll show you what that looks like. Alright, here's the finished fletching. So you can see I've got my wraps on here. Let's see how it lines up. Here's the finished arrow. Now if you wanted to just keep it up on display, just leave it as is and keep the point nice and dull. But if you want to use this, then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sharpen this up and show you what that looks like. It's very simple. Okay, so I've gone ahead and sharpened this. You can see it's got a nice little bevel on both sides. You see that? Now one thing that I do on my broadheads is that on the very tip, if you can see, I actually went really quick and ground it this way. So what I want to do is I want to take off that very tip, because that tip is usually a good place where it will break or roll over. This just gives the tip a little more strength, and you have an extra cutting surface right there. So I really like doing that on broadheads like this, where pretty much all you have is this. There's really no reinforcements on here. So you want to give your point all the advantages you can. So here we go. So now all that's left is to shoot this for you guys. So here we go.